Kia ora. Thank you very much, Quentin. Welcome to the Bay of Plenty. We are, as Quentin said, going to divide this into a few sections. First of all, we're going to talk about the process and how we find who we want to appoint. And then we'll have a little bit about what it's like to work here from the RMOs themselves, and then we'll be answering those questions and hopefully coherently and better than I'm starting out. So first of all, what we're going to do is introduce ourselves in the room. Hopefully we're sharing that PowerPoint, and so we're going to talk about who we are, what process we follow, and what we're looking for, and then a little bit after that about what working here is like. So I'm Alistair McLean. I'm one of the ED consultants downstairs. We'll start with this one.
Diane Henfeld-Gerd. I'm general medicine and infectious diseases consultant.
Tēnā koutou, ko Matt Wera tōku ingoa. My name's Matt and I'm one of the general medical and haematology consultants here.
Right at the top of that screen we've got
Jan Simeon, medical staffing unit.
Kia ora, I'm Ellie. I'm one of the PGY1s.
Kia ora, I'm Kitu and I'm one of the other PGY1s.
Kia ora, I'm Kelsey and I'm a PGY2.
So as you see, we've got a wide spread of people from the DHB, so hopefully we can answer all your questions. And to start off, we'll just talk about the process. And so what will end up happening is ACE will send us out your applications and all the people that have ranked us. And if you apply to us, we will look at your application. We do interview, and we'll talk about it in a second. And when we do interview, there's a panel of the educational supervisors, PGY2 rep, hopefully someone from Maori Health. We've consistently managed to get that, and a medical staffing rep. Before we get to the interview stage, we first of all look at anything that you send us. We look at your cover letter. And the cover letter is important because it tells us a bit about who you are, what your values are, why you're fit and fit with our culture and push our culture forward. Look at your CV. You'll always put a CV in. We always want to know what you've been up to. You look at your references, academics, scholarships, everything else. And that's not in the order that we will rank it, but those are probably just the main three things that will be in all of your or should be in all of your applications. Once we have looked at all of those, we then shortlist for interview. And then surprisingly after that, those of you that agree to interview, we interview. So difficult so far. We will interview however you are able to speak to us. If you remember, in a pre-COVID world, we had electives. We've been used to interviewing by Skype, Facebook, Zoom for a long, long time. We'll talk to you by phone, by face-to-face, and whatever technology allows us to work on the day, or whether you are stuck in Dunedin or able to walk through the door. Of course, we love to see you face-to-face, but if you are doing it by online, then we're generally quite nosy about your background, and that's always quite entertaining to see. After we interview you, we will then send a ranking of candidates back to ACE. And that is a combination of all of those things. Some people are terrible at interview, and yet we can see the person shining through, and they will end up being ranked. And that is because of all the other things. So the next question really is there other things outside that what ACE give us? So kind of visit, is it required? And for those of you on another island, then it's not, and this is advice for whichever DHB you apply for, you should really be making sure that the DHB and hospital you apply for is one that fits you as much as we fit, as you fit us. And so a visit is by far the best way to actually determine that and make sure that the place you want to be for the next 2 years and start your foundation of your careers is the right place to be. And if you do want to visit, we are setting up times for people to do so, generally on Mondays and Fridays, and allow people to get tours, meet these guys, find out what it's like to live, and actually walk around the hospital. Yeah, So self-conscious, sorry. And then after that, then ACE will match our ranking to what you have ranked us. And hopefully we agree that you're fabulous for us and you agree we're fabulous for you. And then we all work together over the next couple of years. So then the next real big question is, well, who are we actually looking for? And you may just think we're looking for people who are going to work for the next couple of years, but realistically, we're looking for our future. We're looking for people and colleagues who are compassionate, who care, who excel, and will end up being part of our team so that we can learn from you and you can learn from us. We are looking for our future consultants. We are looking for our future GPs. We are looking for the people that will make our community stronger, better, and improve by being here. In short, we're looking for our whānau. We're looking for people to be part of our community and part of our family. And then once we've found you and once you've found us, when you start, we will give you an orientation. It's about a week. We will pair you with people who've already been here. And over the next 2 years at the minimum, we will train you and we will support you. And if you hopefully remain with us, we will train you more and we will continue to support you. And there are plenty of ongoing training opportunities beyond PGY2. Our aim is to give you the best experience, foundation and general education that you can have in New Zealand to be the best doctor that you'll be for whichever community you end up, but hopefully ours. But realistically, what you really need to hear is what it's like from the PGY2s themselves as a group. And so as we can't fit a large group of people in here, we have got 3 dedicated people to tell us. We made a short film to show you so that then you can hopefully see a little bit more about what it's like outside through those doors in the rest of the hospital working.
Hi, I'm Liv. I am a PGY2 at Tauranga Hospital. I was an Otago grad. Today I'm here to talk to you guys about how to apply for your first job. In terms of Tauranga, one of the key things is the cover letter. So in the cover letter, we want to know some stuff about you, what you enjoy doing outside of work, but we also want to know what you're going to bring to the hospital when, if you get a job here as well. And we also want to know why you want to come to Tauranga. Is it, the lifestyle? Is it the hospital here? Do you have whānau here? If you're wondering whether or not you should come and visit Tauranga Hospital, it's definitely not compulsory, but I definitely recommend it. It's quite a good way to find out what it's like living in Tauranga or the Mount. You can go to the brunch places, as I'm sure you've seen Tim at, and you can also see what it's like to work in the hospital. Someone can come and give you a bit of a tour around the wards, around the CAF, see what food's on the menu, and then that'll help you decide whether or not you think that Tauranga Hospital will be a good fit for you. In terms of assimilating into the life of a PGY1 from TI, it's definitely not easy. There are ups and downs. Personally, I really like Tauranga because there are always regs around. There are surge regs, med regs, and you just pick up the phone and call them for advice whenever you need it. It's a small enough hospital that there's, 24 house officers in each year, and so you get to know each other really, really quickly, and you'll get to know the regs by their first names and often the consultants as well, which makes working here much more enjoyable. We also have a social team as well, so lots of social events every quarter, and that helps everyone to get to know one another, and that's always something to look forward to as well.
Kia ora, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PGY2s here at Tauranga Hospital. Currently I'm working in the ED and I have been for the last 3 months. Originally I'm from Hawke's Bay, studied in Auckland and I'm an Auckland grad, and I did my last year of study, my TI year here at Tauranga, which is one of the reasons that drove me to apply and want to work here. So in your PGY2 year, there's more opportunities, more attachments than your PGY1 year that you can choose to do. So in terms of medical attachments, we have cardiology and oncology. In terms of the surgical attachments, you can continue to do surgery or orthopedics, but there's also urology and ENT/opthal house officer jobs. There's an ED job that you can do. And there's also a variety of community attachments that people really enjoy. So there's opportunities for GP for 3 months, sexual health, palliative care and public health, with a rural attachment in Te Kaha, which is on the east coast past Whakatane. And that's an opportunity to spend 3 months in a very rural and isolated place with a great community there. And the people that have done it have really loved it and enjoyed it and said that's the best part of their first 2 years of being a house officer. So there's so many opportunities for you going into the future. Cool.
Kia orana and kia ora. Ko Ngāti Toa Rangatira me Ngāti Pirau Oku Iwi, no Rarotonga me Porirua Aho, ko Kyla Martinga Tuku Ingoa. So kia ora everyone, my name's Kyla. I am both Cook Island Māori and Māori. My mum left the Cook Islands when she was younger, moved to Porirua, and that's where I grew up. I am currently a second-year house officer here based in Tauranga Hospital and have just graduated university from Dunedin in 2019. I'm going to talk about transitioning from training intern year into becoming a house officer, which obviously a lot of you guys, that's going to be in your mind at the moment. When I think back to my first few days, first few weeks as a house officer, it was a really fun time, and I can happily say that, and I think that's full credit to Tauranga Hospital, who helped support us throughout the whole way. And the first thing they did was in the first week we had an orientation, and that's essentially just meeting everyone who I guess is relevant, all the different disciplinaries, them asking us questions, us asking them questions, and where to go to for help. So that was really nice way to bridge all the questions we had kind of lulling in our mind. Next, I think, next thing to talk about is really at the end of that orientation, we were able to meet up with who we were switching jobs with, so the house officer on their final few days, which was quite nice to actually see what the job is like. And see kind of firsthand what we'll actually be doing, in the coming days. So that was really nice. And then lastly, something that I think makes people the most nervous is the after-hour shift. So, the 8 till 4 typical job, everyone's around, so that's quite nice. You're fully supported, but it's the after-hour shifts where you are the first doctor where nurses and patients go to for a lot of the wards, and that can be quite daunting when you first start up. But thankfully, Tauranga Hospital actually has you buddy up with someone, so someone like myself or other house officers within the first few weeks of your shift, so that you have someone to go to for help. Even though I'm sure you know the stuff, you've worked so hard to get here, but it's just a nice way to just have that person before you then reach out to help, or you might not need to because you've got the right tools and right management to be able to go forward by yourself, which was, yes, really helpful and made the after-hour shifts a lot less scary for us, which was really nice. One thing that really struck out for me, obviously being Māori, was the fact that Tauranga Hospital has a dedicated ward for Māori patients and their whānau. So it's a medical ward, and the nurses and doctors and other disciplinary are actually amazing at working with this high need demographic, as we all know that Māori house statistics are pretty poor, so it's awesome to see that Tauranga Hospital is actually trying to make a difference. And now that I've actually worked in that department, it's amazing seeing them korero Māori with the patients, you know, the nurses, it's honestly so inspiring. So for myself being Māori in Pacifica, we've got quite a close-knit community here, which is awesome obviously, and it's mostly run by consultants, so we'll get together, so all the Pacifica doctors and, you know, other nurses, etc. will get together if there's a conference on, or we'll Zoom in and then we'll catch up afterwards kind of informally, and it's just nice getting or building those relationships outside of the hospital so that when we are crossing paths in the hospital we actually know who each other are, and that's really nice. And that's the same with the Māori doctors here. That's a bit new at the moment. One of the consultants has just kind of formally started that, and it's quite exciting to see where that's all going to go next, but it's great. It's really, really amazing.
G'day, I'm Tim. I'm one of the PGY2s at Tauranga Hospital, and I've been here for the past couple of years as a TI and now as a house officer. I guess today I'm talking a bit about the lifestyle and what it's like to live in Tauranga and the Mount. Where do I even start? It's a pretty incredible place to live. There are a ridiculous amount of things to do. The lifestyle, I've only ever worked at one place after graduating, but I can't imagine it gets much better than how it is here. Anything from the ocean to the hills, you can do whatever you like. One notable thing about especially living in the Mount is that it's the place where all your mates come to do Instagram stories. You actually live in that spot, so all you need to do on a nice summer's weekend is go through your Instagram feed, and if you're driven by that kind of thing, then this is the place for you. It's absolutely beautiful. You're minutes away from the beach wherever you are. You're minutes away from some really top quality mountain biking tracks if you're good at that. I'm terrible at it, but some people are. Likewise, if you're good at surfing. I'm not very good at surfing either. People are always keen to get out and do stuff. Me personally, I love getting out in the ocean and love fishing. So whether it's on a mate's boat, and surprisingly a few of the RMOs actually do have boats down here, or just swimming off the beach to Rabbit Island and going for a spearfish. Again, I'm not great and don't always catch a lot, but we give it a good try. And it's a great place to pick up activities like that where you may not do it before. Obviously, this does fit in with your work-life balance, and like any DHB, you're going to have to put in a good bit of mahi. But at the same time, same side as that, is that beyond work, you've got so many things on your doorstep that if you do want to get out and do something on an afternoon, it's very, very accessible. You're not stuck in traffic on your way to get to places. You've got people around that are keen. You've got facilities. Whether you want to join a tennis club, you want to play after work football on Wednesdays with the ED consultants, and they'll push you around and give you a bad bruising, then you can do that if you're good enough. If you're not good enough, then go practice first and then go turn up, because they play pretty seriously. But there's never short of a group of people keen to do things. The social life is incredible. We have RMO events each quarter to kick things off, welcome everyone in, and to celebrate the end of a quarter. It's a great way of tying in and sort of relying on these networks that you build within the hospital, outside of the hospital, because you go through so much in your day-to-day work life that you've got a lot of shared experiences. And the thing that I found easiest about coming here was when you pick up the phone, you call someone for help, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be somebody you shared a bit of life and a bit of experience with outside of the 4 walls of the hospital. Yeah, so no matter what I take away from my time in Tauranga, I know that I've always got a good whānau of people, and yeah, I'm not sure if you get communities this close elsewhere, but it's better than I could have hoped for, so yeah.
Kia ora, ko Damaris toku ingoa. I'm in my 3rd year since I left medical school, so that's PGY3 at Tauranga Hospital. And I love working in Tauranga so much that I don't really want to leave just yet. So I'm going to share what options are available after your 1st and 2nd year as a house officer. Yeah, and show that you can keep progressing your career forward while staying in Tauranga. Some options that are available after you finish 1st and 2nd year is you can stay on in Tauranga and keep being a house officer, in whatever area you've enjoyed or that you want to get some more experience in. There's also senior house officer roles that are available. So this is in 6-month rotations in GP, obstetrics and gynecology and ED. And they're really good roles where you get a little bit more responsibility and a bit longer on each specialty, but you still have registrars around to help you and support you. You can also become a registrar, and again, really nice step up when you already know the team of people that you're working with. And you can also start other training programs like anaesthetics training, radiology training and GP, which is a really cool option to work as a house officer in the area where you might want to become a GP, because you've already got connections with the hospital and the community, and you've had a chance to know the systems and how the place works. Tauranga is really cool because once you start working there, the consultants all become kind of invested in your learning, and they like to see you progress in your career choice. So that's a really nice vibe to be a part of. We've also got a few other additional support things. So there's some really awesome Māori doctors in the hospital that have like almost like a mentoring sort of annual monthly meeting that we all catch up and have like a little hui together, and that's a really cool opportunity to be a part of that group of people as well. And then the Pacific doctors, they're awesome, they're really nice, and we sometimes have dinners together, which is a cool thing to be a part of too. But yeah, just having others in the hospital that are there to support you and mentor you along your journey too.
Thank you very much. So I think we're on to questions now. Does that mean we're on the Q&A and chat? Is that right, Quentin?
That's right, yes. So for anyone who wishes to ask any questions live to our panel, you have the option to raise your hand and ask the question live. And we've also had a couple of questions in the Q&A, which you've already answered there as well, Alistair. I just wonder if you can just perhaps reiterate that to the rest of the group.
So the questions were, how many posts do we have? The answer was 22, and the other one was, do we have Otago graduates? And clearly from our video, I was just counting out the ratio. And we don't really mind where you train. We just want you to be to fit and push us forward. But that probably, so there we go. Anonymous attendee has asked. So we probably should get you guys to answer that one.
First one.
So the question out there is, when you're scheduled to work until 4, what time do you actually finish on average? And the answer to that question is dependent on what specialty you're working in. Surgery and orthopedics, you can sometimes be here till 6, 6:30, 7 o'clock, but that's not that common. Probably more your finishing time would be around 5-ish on average on all specialties. Some specialties though have very light workloads, and you can actually leave on time at 4 and arrive on time at 8. So it's very variable, but definitely more likely to finish later than 4 o'clock on most specialties.
I think it's probably also, like, if you put it into perspective with other hospitals as well, like each specialty that you go into will be busy in its own respects on different days when you're on take, or when your registrars are in theatre and you're waiting for answers and things like that. But if you look at other hospitals, like bigger centres, you're obviously going to be busier there all the time. And I guess that's a pro of Tauranga Hospital, is that being a smaller centre, sure, when it's busy, it's hard because there's not as much staffing. But for the most part, the workload's pretty good, and it gives you more time to get away from just the bookwork and the paperwork, which you do a lot of when you're a house officer, and actually get involved and do some more clinical work and even get yourself to theatre or clinics, which I think is probably something to take into account when you're comparing to other centres as well.
Okay.
So
I'm just going to answer one of those questions quickly. Like Chris Hamilton's asked, how accommodating is roster staff towards applying for time off sport? We've had Olympic athletes compete in the Olympics when they've been PGY here. So I think we're pretty accommodating.
So now, family or past history within Tauranga important? Yes and no. One of the things that we do look at on your applications, we know how difficult these years can be. And if somebody has gone off and done their training elsewhere and they have family in Tauranga, that's certainly something that's a boon for them. And that's having that support can be really important in your first couple of years. So yes, if you do have whānau or family here, it is something, and you really strongly want to reconnect with your family and to come home, we certainly try to accommodate people coming home. It does not, however, it's not an absolute.
I mean, I grew up between here and Auckland. My grandparents were from here, and so and my godparents still live here to this day. So, you know, I came back because I didn't want to really work in my first year in Auckland. I've ended up traveling around for the past 10 years, and I've now returned as a consultant. So, yeah, I look at Jan because she's the cornerstone of all of this. She's been here from the beginning, and so I think it's not like you have to have it here, but we certainly look for those sorts of things because we're looking for people who we're not just looking at you from a point of view of just being a first year and then gone. We're looking at you from a longitudinal stance in terms of actual future colleagues and consultants to come back with us. And where this is where your career, because that's where you truly get investment and you get the best learning if that's what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few questions we were just answered by typing. There's one question that's been asked twice, which is what is the likelihood of getting Tauranga if you put it as a second option for your ACE applications? In truth, we don't really know because we don't know what you've ranked us as. However, we hope that you actually you want to come here first and that we are your first choice. And we are endeavouring to make sure that the people who want to come here, who fit us, who want to fit our values, will get to be here. Putting us as your second choice probably suggests you're not really wanting to be here.
Right. So when you look at it, we have 380 applications for 22 slots. So, you know, we're definitely not going to ask you where you ranked us, but we definitely give priority to people who truly want to be here.
And I'll just just confirm that statement as well. Historically, our successful Tauranga applicants have chosen Tauranga Hospital as their first employer preference.
Yeah.
How many? One quick one is how many TIs are shortlisted for an interview? That depends how many we feel are appropriate to be appointed here. If we think that we're going to appoint you, we will put you as for interview. So there isn't a fixed number. We will interview. I think it's normally about 2 days, and the list varies each year. It all depends. The other one, is anyone else to add to that?
Yeah, I can if you want.
Yeah.
Pia's asked about first years feeling like glorified personal assistants. I think the nature of the job is you do admin as well as a lot of clinical learning. Like you're the one that coordinates all the jobs from the team, and that does require a certain amount of paperwork and talking to people, but you learn a lot along the way, talking to people. And like I would call Diane about ID questions and she'd teach me a little bit around the infectious disease aspect of the case and stuff. But in terms of like how clinical learning is enhanced, I think the registrars and the consultants are really hands-on with teaching, and they're really keen to get you involved with whether it's like a minor procedure on the ward, or whether it's teaching you about the disease, and we have radiology teaching every Wednesday, and then clinical teaching every Thursday lunchtimes, and they're both like protected teaching time where you don't have any pages going off, hopefully. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
very.
And if you do get a page, sometimes the consultant that's taking the call will go and answer the page for you, and that goes down well. Yeah.
And it varies as you go along too. You'll also be doing admitting, and you'll be the one on the front line, seeing the patients and admitting patients and coming up with plans. So
I'd probably like to add to that it's really up to you how much you want to get out of it in terms of the clinical learning. You can really step back and just do your job. But if you want to get more out of it, everyone here is more than happy to have you involved with that clinical stuff. So like we were speaking about earlier, you can get to theatre if you've got time on that day, or down to clinic, or registrars will be happy to show you how to put a chest drain in or take one out. So it's entirely up to you how much you want to be involved in that clinical learning. But it's definitely, yes, paperwork, but there are other things available to you as well.
The other aspect as well is Tauranga as a sort of medium-sized hospital. If you're in a really big hospital, often there's lots of training registrars who want to do all that sort of procedural stuff, and you're going to get less of a look in. If you go somewhere smaller, again, you're not going to necessarily come across some of the interesting stuff that we will see here. So I think we have a really nice mix of being able to support you in your learning and allow you to see stuff without having lots of other people steal it from you. Hopefully that answers that.
Yeah.
I think there's one more down below. Oh, there we go. Paired application, we always get, like, that's not an advantage or a disadvantage. It all depends on who the pair is. Just make sure if you're having a paired application, whatever you're applying for, you actually rank the same DHB as number one to start with. We don't know what it is, but it's pretty, that would be a fairly...
And we read your cover letter. So actually, if you're going to have a paired application, it needs to be very clearly written in your cover letter that the two of you would like to be applying together. We're very open and to accommodate that sort of stuff, but we have to know about it. It can't be buried away somewhere. It has to be quite upfront, and it's totally doable.
But also to that as well, don't just copy and paste each other's applications. That is a bad look.
All aspects of their applications must be exactly the same. All employer preferences must be exactly the same as well. Quite often,
your cover letter should not be exactly the same.
Apart from the cover letters, the lowest ranked of the pair is where the pair will actually go at the end of the day. So there is a slight risk on that. So and I've discussed that with the students at the 5th year presentations last year as well.
There's a couple of short answers, and we'll come back to the paperless system in a minute. Is the free lunch yum?
Yeah.
It's a free lunch, and you can't scoff at that.
Yeah,
it is good. I eat it every day.
It has improved.
Yeah,
would be my answer to that. But we clearly have big fans of that. And part-time or shared shifts. So part-time, we have to be able to offer under New Zealand law, so we can't disagree again. And we have people who come part-time. We have people who have babies in their PGY year and then come back part-time. So our aim is to make you have the best foundation for the rest of your career. Right, IT. How do you find the system of most things paper-based still, and do you think this will change to paperless in the future?
Yeah, I've come from Christchurch for my clinical years, where most things now are based off computers and iPads. Coming up here, like the paper-based system does slow you down with some aspects like med charts, paper notes and finding them. That is a hassle. But it's also good in a sense with like radiology, you've got to physically take your form down and discuss it with the radiologist if you want it urgently. It's similar to other centres where you call them, but it's just a good thing for clinical advancement, I think, where you actually have to say, why do I want this test? So that's probably one upside of it. In terms of the timeline of paperless, I know that there's some stuff in the pipeline, but I'm not really qualified to answer too much about that. I know that they're looking into different ways of surveying how that would work and maybe looking at other systems that have been used in other DHBs, but
it's not going to be within their
It's been 2 years away for the last 10 years.
The truth of the matter is it is frustrating, but you just get used to it and you get on with it. And like a small price to pay for what you get for working and living here, I think.
Paper is an over 2,000-year technology. The reason it still exists is because it's very hard to beat in terms of flexibility and use. And it doesn't then require, it doesn't crash on you or have a server problem when you desperately need it not to. But yeah, there's a mixture of paper-based and non-paper-based. A lot of results will come non-paper-based. I think that's answered that one. Oops, someone actually answered. Do we do that one?
Yeah.
Whakatane Tauranga.
Shan, you probably better answering that one, aren't you?
The question is whether PGY1 house officers or above have opportunity to move between Whakatane and Tauranga within a single year, and the short answer is yes. Probably doesn't occur as much for PGY1s, but PGY2 and 3 is quite fluid. We have a number of Whakatane RMOs come up and do their community-based attachments in the Tauranga region, and then we have a number of medical registrars coming through. We've also got a surgical registrar starting in May, coming out of Whakatane as well. So it's definitely quite fluid.
Did we answer the part-time casual question there?
Yes, we did. It's a New Zealand law requirement. So we offer part-time. We talked about people being pregnant and having babies while they're PGY2 year and coming back part-time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So the last question up there at the moment is what runs are available for first-year house officers?
I think it was spoken to a little bit in the video that there are more options available to you as a PGY2, but basically PGY1 is all the ones that are required for your e-port and registration. So general medicine, general surgery, orthopedics, any of the other sort of medical subspecialties like HIA, so older person's health and older person's mental health, psychiatry, any that I'm missing. And then after you've done those core ones in PGY2, we have ED, the community runs, more of the medical subspecialties, so cardiology is available, and oncology, and urology.
Peds as well.
Peds.
Okay. And the community runs are palliative care, public health, sexual health, Takaha, GP, and
we've got 2 coming up.
Oh yeah, yes, public health. There's 2 more coming up for you guys when they're
Māori provider.
Oh right.
GP.
Yeah.
And one other.
Which will be a surprise when you start. Hopefully we'll have it sorted. So we've done that. What runs are done? And are all runs likely to be in Cat C? Shan.
That's such a moving target. Obviously, the bigger the numbers get within a particular roster, the less after hours that creates for people. So I think, like every DHB, that there will be review processes going on probably biannually, and that would be across the whole spectrum. And of course, once we do that, we've also got to incorporate any changes that come through the MECAs as well. So that all influences what that looks like. But in the short term, they're definitely category C.
I mean, in the long term, I think it's been category C for 10, 15 years now. So the chances of it changing imminently are highly unlikely.
Correct.
There's definitely conversations, as Jan said, we're gaining more juniors, however, the weekends are becoming more busy. So we are starting to put more staff on, and so that sort of balances that flux. There is a wide variety amongst categories, and I would say that currently we're sitting on the line of busier weekends but not so frequent. And that's the discussion that we're having at the moment. And those discussions include the house officers as to what they would prefer, and would you like to do a few more weekends still within your route that would keep you within your hour band, but you might not be as busy. And that's one of the great reasons why working here is great. It's because we actually talk to people. It's not a dictum that comes down from above. It's actually, we try to talk to the people who these things actually affect to before we do anything.
You're part of how we provide a service, so you need to be part of making decisions about how the service is provided. The next couple of questions are very similar, and I would have to pass it over to. So, in terms of living in Tauranga Mount, is it easy, affordable to find accommodation, and how much is the rent? And we did see Diane's flat in the video. That's not the rent.
I found it relatively easy. Me and a group of some of the other house officers got together and we found a place out in near Bayfair, which is in the Mount, but just like slightly further out. And we sussed it all by November last year, and it was pretty easy. But no.
It depends on how far out you look at getting a flat, just like anywhere else in the country. It's definitely easier if you've got someone nearby or here who can go to flat viewings for you, because it's pretty difficult. Otherwise, like the flat viewings will have, between like 20 or 50 different groups going through. And so if you are like a walkthrough on the phone, like a Zoom, it's pretty difficult. So keep that in mind and book early.
But it pays off sometimes.
But yeah,
are there still flats that get handed on? Because there previously was a tradition of like flats that got handed on year on year.
Yeah, so usually it'll be like other hospitals as well, where the roster ends, doctors will leave, and then new house officers will come in. But that was a bit mixed this year with rosters changing.
Yeah.
So maybe next year that might be something that works out.
We have a Facebook page for all the doctors that work here, and a lot of people will put up their flats that they know of or their flats that they're moving elsewhere and need people to move into. So even though it may not be where you want to eventually end up, there's often options available for the short term anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of price for rent, I think it's quite variable. It depends whether or not you live in the Mount or Papamoa or you want to live closer to the hospital. So I don't really know the answer to that question.
It's cheaper than Auckland.
And cheaper than Welly. Yeah.
Probably more expensive than Dunedin, is that right?
Yeah,
more expensive
definitely.
I'll throw a ballpark figure, 200-ish just for the room.
Any figures given? We're not
What are you paying?
I'm paying 140 and I'm 50 metres from the beach.
And he's got a spa.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go.
So basically, if you want to move on to another flat, then Q is the flat.
I'm not leaving that. Yeah, very dependent. Jump on TradeMe and have a look. Probably is a good way to go about it.
Yeah.
Teaching. Yeah, so teaching, what Ali mentioned, is Wednesdays and Thursdays every week. There's like 45 minutes each lunchtime. And
it's an hour. For an hour, just not everyone turns up.
An hour. But there's also, like at the moment, I'm doing stroke rehab, and on Mondays there's like meetings which are also like informative in the same sense. And on Thursdays or Fridays later in the week, there's like neurosurgical radiology meetings. So depending on what run you're on, there's always extra meetings where they talk about interesting cases. And it's worth going along to if you've got the time. Just depends on how you do.
The medicine department also has its own individual teaching sessions where on a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday after handover, there's a half-hour session, there's a journal club, there's a cases, and there's quite a fun multi-choice thing that normally is done anonymously, but
quite competitive.
but quite competitively. And that's it. And then there's also morbidity and mortality meetings and other, innovation forums and things like that. So there's a ton of stuff going around. Radiology has teaching,
simulation teaching as well, which people can join in. ED has its own training program. We do simulation on Tuesday mornings as well as Wednesday. The whole afternoon is teaching. So you'll get a lot of opportunity for teaching, and you will get a lot of opportunity for simulation training, and we try to change the teaching depending on what the requirement is for the group and upcoming learning. So again, when COVID was happening, then there was more sort of learning about that.
So for the PGY 1 and 2 protected time for teaching, Alistair is more the PGY 1, I run the PGY 2s. And, you know, it's a mix. Some of it will be didactic, some of it will be practicums, like where upcoming, we have a lumbar puncture practicum, a chest tube practicum. We have a session on different types of ventilation. There's airway management practicum. So it's a mixture of practicums and playing with different procedures and with didactics.
And I'm kind of trying to put it, so particularly in PGY 1, we try to put it so that we front load the stuff that you're going to need day to day at the start, and then slightly more specific speciality towards the end of it. But we also do things like financial planning as well. So we try to actually think about your whole life and future, as opposed to just you as a person providing service.
We also do, you know, self-care for medical care personnel and things like that. So you might have, you know, how to do dermal biopsies one week, and, you know, learning how to teach juniors the next week. So varies quite a bit.
I missed, Michaela said the house officers are buddied up with long days initially.
So they're usually buddied up with another like PGY 2 or above, usually for the first one, maybe two shifts. I think I only had one, but that was depending on like who was around, I guess, for my shift. But it's really good. They don't necessarily come and do the work for you, but they're around if you need to call and ask for help. And if you do call and ask for help, they'll obviously be there to come and give you a hand. So it's sort of like as if you're doing the job, but they're there in the background, just watching over things and there to answer any of your questions, or if there's an emergency, come and help you. Because that is obviously one of the most stressful and worrying parts of starting the job as a new PGY 1. And it's hard to believe, but it does get easier within the first 3 months. By the time you're at the end of your PGY 1 year, it's just like being at work during the daytime, particularly because here there's such great support from all the other registrars, and no one really has a problem with you calling and asking for help. And in fact, it's probably encouraged that you do so if you're worried.
We definitely prefer people asking for help when they're out of the depth, and whatever level you're at. We've done that? Next one is about the interview. Is it medical? Look, we do the interview questions about 3 weeks before the interview, and it is we're trying to assess all of those things. We're trying to, like, you've been through a medical degree, you should have passed that and therefore have your medical. So part of what we're just trying to work out what your values are, what you are like to work with, and whether we can work with you and you can work with us. So even if it's a medical question, that's not necessarily the point of the question. And the questions are varied, but all within your.
And they will not be the same as last year's.
You learned that
we
one.
got caught out on that one.
And they're all within your ability to answer. Like, we want to know who you are. We're not testing you.
Yeah, we're not trying to trick you up. We just want to know your thought process and things like that.
So the next question is around how many med-reg training spots. Officially, as the College of Physicians currently stands, any registrar position is a training position. I am aware that there is an entry into training requirement being crafted, but like many things, it's been many years in the making. So it's hard to go from essentially an endorsement based selection process to actually physically choosing spots. And I think that's been a hold up for the college. So we have 9 general medical teams. So that's 9 registrars there. We have 6 or 7.
35 in total.
35 registrars in total. There we go. We can just cut straight to the number of 35. and so that's a mix. There's a couple of advanced trainees spots specifically in there, but that all of those spots are potential training positions. I mean, when I was a house surgeon here, you didn't do medical training here. Now we've got a situation where we've got the vast majority going through their basic training and mostly completing their advanced training, then going away for a couple of years before coming back. So we're a much different hospital than what, if you even asked someone 5 or 10 years ago what we were like. And so I think, you know, when we talk about looking for a future colleague, we literally are talking about that, because you know, the days of having to be here for 1 or 2 years and going away to actually do your training are gone. You can pretty much do it all here. It's recommended that you do some level of training somewhere else, because then you get a gauge of other hospitals, and that not everything that we do here is perfect. And so that you can bring ideas and other things back to make a difference. And that's what we want from you, just good colleagues who can do good medicine.
We have got a very high pass rate on the training exams.
Yeah, as we do for ED as well. We have I don't think we've actually had anyone fail yet. Shit.
Oh gosh.
Oh God, I hope I haven't crushed them. Gonna go down and I can make them study harder now. I think we've run out of questions. Can we get any more?
Nothing's come through on the live chat, which is, I think the students really want to keep these Q&As to a text base at the moment, which is fair enough. I'd just like to thank all of you, whānau at Tauranga Hospital, for making yourselves available and for giving the applicants some really good insight into what it's like to work with Bay of Plenty District Health Board. It's fantastic that you guys could all come together as a group and have that discussion, and I think that's going to be extremely valuable for those people making decisions about which DHBs that they're applying to, and also how they rank the DHBs and other important information as well with regards to the types of information that's required for the cover letters and how you do interviews and assessments, if they're on site or not. It's all been really great stuff. So thank you very much for coming along to do that.
Thanks, Quentin.
Thank you. And thanks to all the people that turned up to actually.
Oh, they're already running.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Graduates to spots to the club. Sadly, most spots fill up generally after round one offers.
Yeah.
However, what always ends up happening is that there's always someone who's out of sync. There's always like stuff that happens later. And so just because if you're not successful the first time, like with this thing, doesn't necessarily mean that in another few months it's someone who's had to either has a baby or whatever is delayed. So we have Australian graduates as well. We have graduates from lots of different countries. So it's about the quality and the values and the people rather than where you train. Hopefully that answered your answer, Mary Carol.
Any other questions to come through from our TIs at the other end? We'll just give you another 20 seconds or so.
I think it's the house job. The house agents, they've mentioned it multiple times, so I felt that it was reasonable.
Okay. Looks like there's no other questions coming on through now. Just for everyone who is viewing on the other end of the line, feel free to submit any other questions that you feel like you'd like to ask our DHB representatives or even myself at the conclusion of the webinar by accessing our employer information page. All of our contact information is there. If you'd like to ask any of our consultants any questions, please direct them through to Jan first of all, if you want to go that route with Bay of Plenty District Health Board. But thank you very much all for attending. It's been wonderful. It's our first webinar, a couple of technical gremlins in there, but that's to be expected, and I guess we'll just benefit from that from the next lot of webinars that are going through. So thank you very much, whānau, for your mahi. Really appreciate that, and wish you guys all the best as well.
Thanks, Quentin.
Thank you very much, Quentin.
Thanks.
Ka kite anō.